The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And we do that every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. This could help you break into your first job, help the mid level professional break through and find that next promotion, or the marketing professionals break through and find their next agency partner. This week, I interview Kimberly Herrera, who is the managing director, and Mark Lesser, who is a strategy officer of Squint. They're a strategic brand consultancy based in Amsterdam. How awesome. I've never been. I want to go. I'm calling them up. They'll tell me where to go. It'll be great. So we'll get that on the books. But they're going to talk about Squint's unique focus on helping brands identify their happy advantage, which emphasizes happiness, a key driver of consumer behavior. They were founded during the COVID-19 pandemic when Squint aims to address the happiness and well being crisis while fostering a healthier work culture. The duo sharing insights from their work with brands like Olipop, Netflix, and Nike, highlighting their approach to strategic brand growth and audience segmentation. Mark reflects on his unconventional journey into advertising from media agencies, while Kimberly details her path from running a successful nanny agency to co founding Squint. So, your backgrounds, they all can lead to advertising. Their advice for aspiring advertisers includes networking strategically, focusing on personal strengths, and targeting high growth sectors. So, you're going to learn a lot from this episode. You're going to get inspired how to leverage your diverse experience to thrive in this industry. And you're going to want to learn about what a strategic branding consultancy does compared to an agency. They'll explain that. To connect with them on LinkedIn and listen to the end of the episode in case they have other tricks to do so. And if you like what you hear and interested in learning more about them, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, leave a nice written review, and also a 5-star review on Spotify would go a long way to help us grow and to continue to get amazing guests. Now, on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Struggling to find the right strategists and account professionals for your agency? Meet No Single Individual, the agency partner of the future. No single individual delivers team-based support that's fast, flexible, and tailored to your unique needs. Forget sorting through resumes or juggling freelancers with one email. No single individual provides cohesive teams of experienced professionals who are ready to hit the ground running. Whether it's pitch support, leave coverage, or expanding your capabilities, no single individual makes sure you stay focused on delivering outstanding work. Join the many agencies already benefiting from No Single Individual. Visit nosingleindividual.com to get started. All right. Kim and Mark, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How are you doing today? I believe you're both in Amsterdam. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Thanks so much. We're doing well in Amsterdam. Rainy day today, but we're excited to be on Breaking and Entering.
Heck yeah. This will be fun. So, combo episode, we do these not as frequent as I would like. So, I'm excited to have both of you on here. We'll talk about what you're doing today, but first and foremost, co-founders of Squint. Is this correct?
That's correct. Yes, in the game together, about 3 years deep into starting a strategic brand consultancy, and it's been a wild but extremely fun ride on the way.
So, Mark, what's your role? And then Kimberly, you tell us your role at Squint.
So I am the chief strategy officer. So we're, our primary focus is strategy. That's sort of my background and expertise. And so I'm really focused on our strategic product, and that's my main role.
Yeah, and then I'm the co-founder along with Mark and the managing director here at Squint. So back of house, kind of good stuff.
Okay. And I want to take a step back real quick. How is Amsterdam? I've never been. Like, if I were to visit, where should I go visit? Like restaurants, recommendations. What do you got for me? How long have you been there? Just real quick. Kimberly, you want to go?
Yeah, it's a great place to be. I would suggest not visiting during this time of year because this is when it's wet and cold. But come in the summer, you'll have an excellent time. The usuals, the good museums, getting on a boat, getting in the canals. Our favorite restaurant is Takas with um, excellent food. So yeah, I mean, so many recommendations. Definitely suggest coming in the summertime.
Okay. I'll take that. Take that. Wonderful. Just wanted to get that understanding. I was supposed to visit there in college and never ended up going. So I'll put that on my bucket list and I'll say hello to the Squint team. So back to Squint, a strategic brand consultancy. I want to unpack this a little bit further. So Mark, can you tell me what this means? And for our listeners out there, we traditionally interview a lot of traditional full service agency professionals out here. So can you tell us, like, even before we get into Squint specific offering, what's the difference between a full service agency and a strategic brand consultancy?
Yeah, it's a great question, and to be honest, people mean different things about it these days. So it's one of those kind of moving spaces where you can have different companies that mean different things by it. But its most basic, marketing departments are looking for a lot of partnership in trying to set who their audience is, what their path to growth is commercially. They're trying to understand a lot of big strategic questions like what should their brand positioning be, what should their channel strategy be. And increasingly, they are turning to strategic consultancies, to brand strategic consultancies to help them do that. In the sort of traditional world, there was a few players in this market, but you really kind of had management consultancies, so the big guys like Accenture, who'd be helping them with very big, commercial consulting problems. And then the ad agencies had a very wide role for them. So they'd be doing a lot of these tasks and stretching all the way down to execution. The way the market's reshaped a little bit, and this is a generalization, but a lot of people are talking about it, is the ad agencies are doing more and more focused on the executional side. So they're more focused on creative and production, and they are just one of a series of partners that marketing departments have got. They're working with their creative agency, they're working with their social agency, they're working with the digital agency. And so what it's left is this kind of gap, which we call the meaningful middle, which is they've got a lot of big questions about their brand, their course of direction, and they need a partner to go on that journey with, someone who's not tied to any of those executional disciplines. And so what we've seen recently is this big growth of different forms of strategic brand consultancy, and we're sort of a part of that wave of that growth, and have sort of been excited to move into the space.
Gotcha. So then, you're working directly with brands and you're not necessarily doing a lot of like the creative execution, although I'm sure you can do that if needed. So I guess, like, what are some of those specific challenges that you're seeing over and over again? Maybe what's your sweet spot? Like, if a brand came to you, say, we need help with X, what are you going to come in and just hit it out of the park?
So the question that brands come to us is, how should we grow? So it's a big question in which they don't know what to do with their brand in order to grow. And it's a great question to be asked, because you've got to be very smart, I think, to think about all the different potential drivers of growth and to help them with an issue like that. And I think because there's so much exciting things happening in the industry and within media, brands more and more have this question, which is, what should we be doing? How should we grow? So if I take we built really our business over the last 3 years over our partnership with Olipop, which some of your listeners might be familiar with. It's a healthy soda that has grown really exponentially over the last kind of 5 years. And when we met them 3 years ago, they were at this stage where they were selling successfully into health food stores. They were called a sparkling tonic at that stage. And they were like, we want to make the bust into the mainstream. How do we do it? And how do we build an amazing brand? And so we went on a journey with them, which was about first defining who their audience was. We went and found an audience that we felt would be receptive to their product. So we did some market segmentation. We did some other kind of pieces around that. And we found out what they wanted from this product. And one of the kind of key things that we discovered was they didn't really want a sparkling tonic. They wanted a happiness soda. And so we helped them make some changes around the way the soda was described. We redescribed it as a new kind of soda. We helped them make some changes to the claims. Like they were talking a lot about gut health, which we found out was important, but not the number one thing. And so we made some changes around that. And then we started to build a brand positioning and a big idea platform from which the brand could go activate around. And,
Gotcha.
Since then, tons of great and really talented people have come in and executed against that, including their own in-house team, who is a fabulous creative team. But we've been a sort of, we've been very fortunate to be, a thought partner with them over the last 3 years in terms of making some of those big strategic decisions about their growth.
Incredible. What a great brand and a great story case study there. Yeah, I was going to ask you, and you kind of answered it already. So you come up with the strategic like framework and like repositioning for some of these brands, and then you hand it to them, and then they go off and maybe it's in-house or they work with another agency or they get freelancers and they're executing like on the creative and all the deliverables after that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the way that our company works is there's certain areas of execution that will help at a conceptual level. So we do naming and brand identity, and we do big idea development. But what we don't do is execute stuff. Like we don't get involved in production, and that's where either a client's got a series of executional partners that they really like. There's a lot of clients that we work with that are in the scale-up space, a little like Olipop, and then increasingly have in-house creative teams. And so what they're looking for these days is they're looking for a partner that can come in, operate as a thought partner, and then is really comfortable collaborating with folks and say, and often like our job will be to get we'll involve the creative team in the process and we'll get them hyped up and we'll make sure they really understand the creative blueprint that we're trying to build as well. So I think there's just a real range of models out there, and the growth of in-house as one element has been kind of important in the sort of growth of a model like ours.
Totally makes sense. I was just thinking about like being a business owner on my end of things with breaking entering. Like you need somebody externally, and with a fresh pair of eyes to give you that direction you need, that North Star. Just like how I try to help out students when they're trying to find their first job. When you're in it and you're living it day to day, and you have all these options and all these thoughts just swarming through your mind. It's so nice to have a strategic partner that can kind of just give you a map, like, or at least a compass to give you a North Star where you need to go. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but that's so refreshing. And I can see it should be mandatory that all brands or all companies have some sort of strategic brand consultant to show them the next steps. I love that.
No, we agree with you at Squint.
Yeah, totally. We think it should be mandatory too. But I think increasingly, and people use the exact words that you use, North Star, I need a map, I want a thought partner. And I think more and more clients are just, and transparently, there, a lot of that role I think did used to be played by ad agencies who just did have a bigger, larger role with them. And increasingly that's rarer. And so they are looking for an agnostic partner to operate with them. And sometimes a little bit upstream too of where the ad agencies were previously. Like they kind of need that blend of commercial, brand, and creative thinking coming together. And that's a lot of the type of asks that we're being, asked to think about.
So then what does a team look like? How do you guys operate? And are you hiring any entry to junior level roles for the listeners out there, or any positions open right now?
Yeah, so we've got, it's about 4 of us full-time on the team. A lot of folks in the kind of operational side as well. And then we really work with our partners. When we work with our partners, they come to us with a very specific task, right? I'm looking for your help on this very major or very specific role. And so we have a lot of partners that we work with in the US, here in the EU, depending on where the client is based. And so any year we can work with tons of teams, anywhere from like 30 to 45 people a year. And we really do structure that towards the needs of a client. So we're a smaller team in-house full-time, but we work with quite a few people throughout the year.
So we have like a naming specialist, a designer, and some of those folks we work with 9 months out of the year, so they're very much like part of the team. But what we're really trying to ensure is that we can offer a very holistic model to our clients, where we've got best of the best in every kind of sector, and we can provide a very full brand transformation service for them. To your question, Gina, because I know a lot of your audience is, it's the clues in the title about breaking and entering. We haven't opened up junior roles yet. I think we're about to. I mean, we're 3 years deep as a company. The thing that we've been thoughtful about a couple of things. So one is, the first thing we wanted to do was offer best of the best. So it was about a senior model in order to go build our product. And that's what we've been doing. And we're now at the stage where we've kind of created a thing we can start to systemize and build it, because we wanted to ensure when we were at the stage of hiring junior staff that we could provide the right experience for them. And I've been in companies where they've thrown in junior staff because at the time it's what they could afford rather than it's because what they needed. And that is not a win-win situation. And often it's a really bad experience for both parties. So I think we are soon on the journey to be able to start to operate. But I do think it's a duty. You have a duty of care, particularly to less senior members of the team. And when you open up those roles, you really have to ensure that you have the right infrastructure to create training development for them. And at the very early stages of a startup, that's not possible. But I think we're starting to approach that. And, I've always loved being a manager. It's a big part of why I get up in the morning. And we're really excited to hopefully be able to offer some of those roles in the near future.
Good. So people could be on the lookout. But I love that point that you made. I think a lot of employers and agency founders should hear that. And I'm glad they listened to that lesson there on hiring entry-level talent and the infrastructure needed. So talking about entry-level talent and beginner jobs, I would like to kick this thing back real quick, talking about high level how you both broke into this business, learning about what point did you realize you want to make ads, and then what did you do to break in? What were those steps you took? And who do we want to start with? Should we start with Mark or Kimberly?
So I think Kim has the more interesting story. So why don't we start with me so you keep the listeners?
Okay.
So I don't get beaten by
Kimberly. Kimberly's story is amazing. I'm excited. Mark, I don't think I've really heard yours fully. So let's dive in. When did you realize you wanted to make ads for a living or be in the strategic brand communication space?
So like a lot of people in advertising, I sort of fell into it. I had done a law degree, realized I really did not want to do it. And then I actually went away. I had very understanding parents, I'll put it that way. I went away and did a gap year that lasted 3 years. I was working the whole time and paying my own way, but I was drifting between seasonal work, at various different places, and just trying to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And honestly, I just got a recommendation from someone like, advertising media, you should give it a go. And so I actually joined the industry via a media agency in the UK. The brand name no longer exists, but it was called MEC at the time. And it was actually a really fantastic place to join the industry. It was like packed full of incredibly smart strategists. It's still one of the best places I've ever worked at. Like, they had an incredible leadership team, incredible culture, some incredibly smart people. And I loved that experience and just kind of went on a journey from there. And what was a priority for me is in my wandering years, I had spent some time in America. I'd come back and entered in London. And as great a city as London is, I was really desperate to get back to New York. And that was just kind of my dream city. So the company was very understanding, and I was able to transfer with the company out to New York. And I think you had to do a 3-year minimum before you were allowed to transfer. And I transferred on the day of my 3rd anniversary. And that's how desperate I was to get back out to New York.
Nice.
And then I bounced through a few roles, just trying to find the right thing for me. Like, I moved from a media agency to a different media agency, which was doing a little bit more the type of strategic thinking and research that I had done in London. My first experience, honestly, when I moved to America was just filling out a lot of spreadsheets and being very bored. And I think I called my mother in tears on the first day. I was like, I've made a horrible mistake, And so it took me a while to kind of figure it out. But I ended up at a big ad agency called McGarry Bowen, which was great training. And then I ended up at RGA in kind of like part of, for those that don't know, is a sort of digital innovation agency, famously works with Nike and a number of other big clients. And that was sort of their heyday. And it was a great experience. I found myself in the right place, my career accelerated very rapidly there. Found myself running the Samsung account along with another pieces, which was kind of like by far our biggest, piece of business at the time. And just gained a lot of, experience. And, you know, ultimately we moved to Amsterdam and launched Squint after learning some things about the way the industry was changing. But I think that battle through to New York and the battle through the different pieces was kind of the making of my experience in many ways and skill sets I joined.
Got it. Biggest lesson you can give for the aspiring advertiser from your career so far?
I mean, I think there's no conventional path. There is nothing about this industry that means you need any type of specific degree or anything else. And I think you've got to think about how you market yourself to the people that are going to be, hiring you. So don't get me wrong, degrees and stuff is still important, but like, I just would say like everyone falls into this industry, like they come from all types of backgrounds, and that's important because the job is about talking to normal people. So whatever your background is, like wherever you come from, you should feel like you belong in this industry because you do, and every path is valid and interesting. And there might be a path that you feel insecure about in some way, but actually you should feel secure about it because you're bringing something interesting and new to the industry. And for me, it was like, even just coming from the media side into the brand side, I was a bit unusual, just something as small as that. But actually what I've learned is it's now my biggest asset. I've got a very holistic view of the industry. It's very, very helpful. People regularly note that my skill set is wide. So I think sometimes in the industry, there has been a bit of like snobism or elitism about certain types of backgrounds, but I think that's changed a lot. And I think whatever your background, whatever your path, you should feel good about it.
Love it. Kimberly, how about you? How did you break into this business?
Yeah, so I definitely had a different route in. So for me, while I was finishing my biology degree, I started nannying in New York, actually. And I kind of had this revelation of, I think there's an enormous market opportunity here. We've got nannies who need to market themselves better. And so I was meeting with amazing women who spoke more than one language, or back at home where they were from, they were accountants or they were dentists, and they were in the States kind of figuring out how to transfer their certifications in the US. And I was just talking to these folks like, hey, you can market yourself better. You can work with amazing families. If you think about it, you speak more than one language. Now that's a tutor a parent doesn't have to hire. You were accountant. Now that's a math tutor that someone doesn't have to hire. And so kind of off of the back of these conversations with women that I was like working alongside all the time, I launched a nanny agency called Campus Caregivers. And we were just founded on the principle of like great nannies. They not only care for a child's happiness and their well being, but they kind of find fun and inspirational ways to help them develop. And so I ran Campus Caregivers for about a decade. Um, and, as you can see, we carried that same thought process around happiness and well being, and we apply it today at Squint, to brands that we work with and consumers and all of that. And so after my time with Campus Caregivers, we moved over to Amsterdam, where I joined a tech startup in operations and learned a lot there. I'm learning a lot. I learned a lot about the European market versus the US market. Like I owned a business in the States for 10 years. I kind of knew how that ran. And the difference is, you come here and you learn, oh, folks even talk to each other differently here. A business call is much different here than it is in the States. And so kind of applied that to when we started Squint together, with both clients on both sides of the ocean, kind of seeing great how this is how we manage as Squint as a company. And so my first foray really into the industry is with Squint. And so I've now been in the industry for the past 3 years, and it's been great. And I always joke that I'm kind of the layman in the business. Like Mark said, every kind of background that you have and every job that you have has led you to where you are. And it kind of helps you understand the different types of clients depending on the business that you have, right? Had a cat growing up. and you're now working with a cat litter company, that kind of stuff, right? So every moment in your life is relevant. And I'm super, super, proud of us and our backgrounds, and that led us to Squint today.
Incredible. That business you ran for 10 years. I mean, that sounds incredible and super difficult. So I'm a couple years in, a couple months in breaking entering full time. So I definitely would need some advice on that. But like for the listeners out there, like this is an interesting path, because I know I talked to some of these students and aspiring advertisers, and I know that they have like clothing brands or mainly like these passion projects, like they're selling stuff. And I asked them, well, they come on and they say, I want to break into an agency. And I look at their website and what they're selling. I'm like, do you really want to break into an agency right now? It seems like you want to like launch this clothing line or launch this pottery, the pottery sales, whatever it might be. And then they look at me like, actually, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur. And then I'm like, you can always break into an agency later on, and give it a shot now while you're young. So what do you agree with that advice? Like, what advice do you have for the aspiring entrepreneur out there?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's someone who started as an entrepreneur, I think that it all depends on what it is you're chasing. Like, I don't think in my life I was ever like, oh, I want to be this thing, right? I have an ultimate goal of X or Y. I was always chasing bigger, better, and more fun. And I think that can start entrepreneurially. That can be, hey, this is the business that I have today. And then it can be you're looking forward, you're looking at your friends LinkedIn and you're like, oh, they just made this incredible ad, I want to do what they do. And for me in that stage, in that moment, that's bigger and that's better, and that's something I want to pursue. So I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say there's a right way around or right time. It's just like, what is your goal, and chase that. Like, again, mine was bigger, better, more fun, and Squint was bigger, better, more fun than the operations, tech role that I had at that time.
That sounds like a life mantra. Like that's like your career framework
Yeah.
almost. So every
If you get
decision you make in your career can be pointed back. Is it checking those boxes of those three items? So that's good too. And, good advice for everybody listening. Like, what are the things that you want to embody in your career? So really good. So tell me about the ideation process for Squint. And when you, I guess, like on Mark, your side of things being in the industry, you know, how do you come together and make this brand called Squint? Like, what are the things that are going into it? What did you want to build it on, make it different from other consultancies, other agencies out there? What were some of those mandatories for this business?
Well, so I think one of the things that's interesting about our business is that we were born in or around COVID. It was just as we were exiting the pandemic, and that was important to us for a number of reasons. I think one, it was important in the partnership between me and Kim. Like, we were sat at a dining table together, working through the pandemic, and we realized that we had a strong potential business partnership. So that was kind of an important thing. But what was also important was it was really obviously the peak of the happiness crisis, the well-being crisis, which has kind of continued. And that's really been actually our core area of interest and focus. And so we weren't able to articulate it as clearly then as we do now. But what we knew was, one, we wanted to build a business that was not a burnout factory. We had both worked at places where that was true, where, effectively a lot of people were working very late for little reward and in unfair environments. And we felt like there was a way to build a healthier business where that was not true, where people's, happiness, health, and well-being was looked after. But what we also realized over time was the pursuit of happiness is just a very big driver of today's economy. And there's lots of, studies that we've been looking at about how, unhappiness has been growing over the last 20 years and has peaked, and how happiness has actually become the single biggest driver of purchase intent, way more important than ease, comfort, trendiness, coolness, all these other things that we spend a lot of time thinking about. So we've built a company where every strategy we write is focused on one thing, which is what's this company's happy advantage? And we're thinking about writing value propositions for companies that build happiness within them. And that'll mean very different things for different companies. This is not about sticking smiling logos on packs. It's about thinking quite deeply about what really lights people up, what gives them, genuine uplift and reward, and what will keep them coming back. And that's taken us on quite a wide journey. Like I think I already talked about Olipop and the creation of a happiness soda, which was in many ways, the sort of birth of our company and philosophy. But we've worked with Netflix on how to make their viewing experience more enjoyable. We've worked with a fintech company about how to reduce stress and burnout and build a more motivational brand around how people get paid. And we've also been doing tons of work with Nike around how sport can really engage with this generation, which has obviously often been characterized by anxiety and stress.
Understood. What are some of the things that you want to tell maybe any marketing professionals out there? What are some quick solutions or some things that they can reframe their thinking to give them some advice on the brand side specifically?
Well, I think obviously to double down on our positioning, today's best business strategy is centered on happiness. And we are at a unique moment in time in which people are, it's not just imagined, people are unhappy, and they are looking for places in which they can invest their hard-earned money in ways that will improve their happiness. And that means if you can get the value proposition of your company right against that, this is a very reliable path to growth. And that is often creating in almost every sector a high growth, high value segment that is focused on happiness. And I think there is understandably a lot of talk and focus on technologies like AI, and I think they will be very disruptive. But often from a marketing standpoint, they are operational. They are ways about increasing efficiency and lowering costs. They are not fundamentally about better connecting with your consumer and unlocking high value and new markets. And I think that this focus on happiness, that's really what it's about. And so I think, we're doing a lot of work now in the gaming industry to understand what it means. We're finding that actually the nature of happiness versus toxicity in community-based games, which is every game pretty much these days, is exceptionally important in whether gamers come back and whether they repeat purchase. You can go and listen to Activision Blizzard's earning calls and you can hear them talk about this, about how important it is to them, And so we think this is something very, very important for marketers to tune in, and the most important source of value today.
Got it. And for Kimberly, and 3 years ago, you broke into advertising and branding and strategic comms. I want to hear your thoughts on this industry, and just because you're fresh into it, what advice do you have for people just breaking in, and some things that you've noticed that you want to share?
Yeah, I think for some advice for folks breaking it is to meet with everyone. I think you often hear the advice like reach out to folks on LinkedIn, reach out to CEOs, all that stuff. And I actually learned this from Mark, because early on in Mark's career, folks would reach out to him even when he wasn't super senior, and he always gave folks their time. Sure, let's go for a coffee, let's chat. Here's some information that I know. Let me know if I could be of help. And I think that was a really great learning for me as I was in the industry, is just meet with everyone, and not specifically the C-suite. Like, even when I was looking to break into the tech field, I messaged folks who were interning at tech companies in Amsterdam, or folks that just got out of coding programs and was like, how was that? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? And it's the same, I think, with any company, is you have to meet with folks from the bottom up and work your way up, because oftentimes you only have one chance to meet the CEO or the CFO or the CMO, and you want to make a great impression. And if you do that now, you're not prepped, right? You don't have enough information when you're breaking in on the industry to ask the right questions, to make that great impression, to possibly, get a job or an internship at that company. But when you start young and start, at more of the entry level, hey, can I talk to someone who's interned here last year, or find them on LinkedIn, or, middle management, any of that stuff, they give you the tools and the tips really that you'll need to break in, so that eventually when you meet a C-suite person, you're ready, and you have that great chat
Totally.
with them, because you've met with everyone.
Yeah, I always tell students and recent grads, build out like your boss list, which is much different than like your networking list. Identify like the creative directors that you really aspire to be like, and don't reach out to them until you're really 99% there, like on your portfolio, your work, your resume. But then you can network more strategically with the people, a couple years older than you or directly in that industry. People just go
Yeah,
right to the
absolutely.
C-suite, and then I'm like, no, like your book's not ready or it doesn't look good. And now they're going to remember you for that, for it's the first impression.
Exactly. Yeah, because they'll remember you where you were at that time, right? As opposed to, hey, I've studied the industry. I've met with these folks. I know what I know, and I know what's great, and I know what's cool, and I know what folks are into, and here's how I can make a difference.
Yeah, totally. Mark, I have a question for you. If you were just breaking into this industry today, what I guess what would you apply for? Like what type of environment would you want to work in today if you're just starting out?
Well, I think it depends on what type of person you are. As in, I've always thought that there are a few fundamental skill types, which to me are technical, conceptual, people, and creative. And you're probably at most two of those types, you know? And if you're technical, you're going to be in some type of project management or some type of like analytics and data role. You're able to think of, complex tasks. If you're conceptual, strategy might be right for you. Like you're able to think about things, maybe a creative role as well. If you're people, you're going to be in some kind of account management or general like leadership track role. And if you are lateral, obviously kind of creative functions, could be right for you. And I've always just had that. So you should just kind of know, like, there's a lot of things you can develop, but you should know those sort of fundamentals about yourself, just so whatever type of org you're looking at, you can kind of orient in the right type of role. In terms of the types of companies, for those that don't listen to Scott Galloway, and I imagine there's some decent overlap with your with your listenership, I would say go for it. And to think a little bit about one of his first principles is look where the growth is, and then plot your path against the growth, because you will enjoy working at a well-funded, high-growth company with a decent fit more than you will enjoy working
Yeah,
at a declining, struggling company that it was in theory your dream job, because those economic factors will have a big impact. And I'd say some of the
totally.
things that are winning in the industry today are in-house and brand side, social's doing very well, strategic consultancies are doing well. And those are three areas that I would entertain. There are more and others, but I would pay attention to the economics of the industry and the economics of the companies that you're joining. I think often when you're entering, you don't think about those things. I certainly didn't. I just thought like they seem super cool, but you should think about the underlying economics because it will have a really big impact on your experience.
So what are those? What is like? Because I don't know about this stuff. So what type of research would I need to do, like to understand if it's going to be in a growth field or a declining field?
So one of the things you can definitely do is like in categories, you can just Google like how are ad agencies doing or plight of ad agencies, or like you can Google something as simple as like you know growth and shrinking areas within marketing services, and you'll find lots of smart consultants out there who've been writing reports and
Yeah,
articles on this type of thing. On your specific company, if they are a publicly traded company, you can go and find out how they're doing. Publicis, for example, has been doing very well recently. They're a publicly traded company. Like, so a lot of their ventures are very well funded. They've been doing lots of kind of things that almost feel like passion projects, and they've got the resources to go do them. So, if the company you're looking at is part of a wider holding group, they'll be a publicly traded company, and you can go read about how they're really up to.
Right.
And those things are important, honestly. You will feel it once you've worked in a place that is doing well and growing and one that's shrinking. You'll feel the difference immediately. And I think that's one of the hardest lessons you learn in your career, particularly over the first 10 years.
Gotcha. Well, Bill, I appreciate it. Any other things that we didn't get to talk about that you're really passionate about, you want to let the listeners know? Otherwise, my last question will be, how can people reach out and learn more about Squint?
Well, in terms of reaching out, please go check out Squint Consulting on our LinkedIn. Follow along. As I said, we will hope to be posting more roles as we go. We have been hiring, and we are growing rapidly right now.
Good.
So we're always on the hunt for more talent, and we would love folks to be following along the journey. And at the right moment, hopefully we can kind of connect with people. So that's definitely how to follow along. Final words of wisdom, Kim? You're the wise one.
Oh, I love that you handed that over to me.
That was a grenade.
I think good podcast trick. Hey, I think, yeah, what I'd love to, what's next for Squint? I'd love to just, we're super excited to apply the happiness advantage to the new clients that we're working with, and to continue the relationships with our existing clients. Like Mark said, we're going to be looking for some potential new hires in the next year. And so, yeah, I think this is a great time for strategic consultancies. We're excited to be part of the growth and of this kind of sector. And we can't wait to meet the new faces that join.
Fantastic. Well, both, thank you for coming on, and I wish you all the best. I know all of Squint will be really successful, and I can't wait to follow along.
Thanks so much, Gino.
Thanks so much for having us, Gino. We appreciate it.
Of course. Have a good one.